Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this 11th briefing for parliamentarians and parliamentary staff. Our focus this morning is on UN Peacekeepers, Guardians of Peace, or a Work in Progress is the title. And my name is Patty Torsney. I'm the permanent observer for the Inter-Parliamentary Union to the UN in New York, and my colleague Alessandro Motter is on this as conference as well. We're very pleased to have three special guests and experts with us. Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix is the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations. Welcome this morning. His Excellency Ambassador Lok Bahadur Thapa is the permanent representative of Nepal to the United Nations. Welcome, sir. And Dr. Ai Kihara Hunt is at the University of Tokyo, and she's joining us from Tokyo. She's the co-author of The Future of Peacekeeping, New Models and Related Capabilities. I think for many of us, the peacekeepers and those iconic blue helmets are one of the most important symbols of the United Nations. It was started some 77 years ago, and those peacekeepers are at the forefront of international efforts to sustain peace in conflict zones. But they operate under very challenging conditions. They protect civilians, they support political processes, and they facilitate the rebuilding of war-torn societies. Their missions are not without criticism or limitations. It's amazing to think that some 87,000 personnel from more than 120 countries operate within a rather slim budget of $6.45 billion, and yet they accomplish so much. They've had very successful missions in Liberia and Sierra Leone and in Cambodia, but they've also had some real challenges, including resource restraints, operational inefficiency concerns, and of course, some allegations of misconduct. There are real concerns around the narrow mandate that peacekeepers are given. They are really maintaining peace after a ceasefire rather than actively intervening to prevent conflicts. There are a number of restrictions in terms of legal restrictions on their work. There are mandate constraints, there are resource and political constraints, and there is the risk of impartiality, of course. And of course, very important to the IPU, there is the concern around the gender dimension of peacekeeping, where just 6.6% of the uniformed personnel are in fact women. If we're going to improve representation and integrate gender-sensitive recruitment policies to enhance operational effectiveness and foster greater trust and cooperation from local communities, there's a lot of work to be done. There are a number of current reform and proposals that are on the table to revise mandates and include things like conflict prevention and strengthening accountability. And so today we want to drill down on that, first from the Undersecretary General, then from the Ambassador, and then from our academic expert on how can peacekeepers better adapt to today's complex conflicts. What are the barriers to achieving gender equality, or gender parity rather, amongst peacekeepers? How do we improve accountability across missions? And what are the measures to address allegations of, or are the measures that we have rather to address allegations of misconduct strong enough? We'll have about 5 to 7 minutes of intervention from each of the experts, and then we will go do questions and comments under 2 minutes from the people who are participating, and you can simply raise your electronic hand, and I will keep track of who those interventions are coming from, and then we will move back to the experts to answer those questions. So, without further ado, Mr. Undersecretary General, Monsieur Jean-Pierre Lacroix, over to you.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning and afternoon and maybe evening to those who are joining. Now, let me just say a few things. I mean, the data are in the background paper. We have close to 70,000 peacekeepers deployed today. We have 11 missions. The budget is $5.6 million for this year. And the missions are, as we all know, different. They're very diverse. some of them have a mandate that is relatively narrow and essentially limited to overseeing the respect of ceasefire, and other missions have a much broader mandate that ranges from active involvement in the support to political efforts, to protection of civilians, the building of state capacities, the monitoring of human rights violations, and a number of other tasks. The missions are also different and diverse in terms of their size and budget. The three biggest missions we have in Africa have each of them roughly a budget of $1 billion a year. UNIFIL in Lebanon has a budget of about $500 million a year. And then we have smaller missions, like, for example, Cyprus, or our missions, our observer mission in Western Sahara. And of course, that is also reflected in terms of the size, the number of staff, ranging from close to 20,000 staff for the biggest mission to a few hundreds for the smaller ones. But I think there's one thing that they all have in common, which is somehow overlooked, or at least deserves to be highlighted. All missions are political. And I think it's important to emphasize this because people would tend to look at peacekeeping as through the blue helmet, or that is, uniform personnel with the blue helmet, and look at that this tool of the UN as essentially a military, or maybe a military and police tool. And that is not the correct view, because they're all created, these missions are all deployed and created to support efforts towards a political solution. Now, and that is perhaps why we're facing a key challenge today, and I will come to that in a minute, but I'd like to talk about the achievements before we talk about the challenges. First of all, amongst all these challenges that I will sort of list once again later, the peacekeepers continue to play very critical roles in many different countries or territories, that ranges from protecting respect for a ceasefire, that is, preventing a resumption of violence in places like Cyprus or Western Sahara or other places, to protecting civilians. And every single day, even though we would want to do more and to be able to do more, there are hundreds of thousands of civilians that are directly protected by peacekeepers. Now, if we look back in history, there is a very long list of countries that were supported in their return to peace and stability by peacekeeping operation. And I'm saying were supported because the role of peacekeeping is a supportive one. There is not a single case where peacekeeping operations did the job by themselves alone, without the active involvement of the local communities, the local authorities, or the local parties, and of course other partners. But we are facing significant challenges today. And I think the main challenge, coming back to what I said about the political nature of peacekeeping, is a political one. That is the division of our member states, the polarization of the Security Council, which means that, first of all, the missions are less solidly supported, but also, and more importantly, that the political processes that those missions are deployed to support are themselves less supported, and they are not benefiting from the level of unity that was there in what I call, maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but the golden age of peacekeeping, the 90s, the 2000s, even though, we all know that the 90s were also a time where some of the massive failures of peacekeeping occurred in Rwanda and Bosnia-Herzegovina. But without a united international community, not only are peace operations less supported, but the parties are less inclined to respect their commitment. They're less inclined to implement whatever agreement they enter into, because they don't feel the encouragement, it's an understatement for pressure from a united and determined and engaged international community. Now, in addition to that, we're also facing the evolving nature of conflict. And of course, that is massively impacting our mission. And it ranges from the stronger influence of the drivers of conflict, such as international criminal activities, the impact of climate change, of course, terrorism, new form of non-state actors, such as private security companies. I mean, we all know private security companies in themselves are not new. Indeed, I mean, they are older than formed regular armies, but now, you know, they are coming back. And of course, together with the different forms of armed groups that are involved in either in transnational illegal activities or terrorism, or both. I mean, usually both. And on top of that, we are seeing the growing impact of the enablers or the new enablers, such as the digital technologies, with the resulting growing impact of mis and disinformation and a couple of other sort of different forms of threats, such as the more sophisticated ID attacks and so on and so forth. And then, if that were not enough, we are now facing a liquidity crisis and a budget crisis. Now, budget crisis is basically coming from the fact that most of our top financial contributors are facing challenges in terms of their public finances. If you look at the list of the top 10 financial contributors, none of them doesn't have challenges when it comes to their economy, their public finances. And on top of that, a number of these important financial contributors are taking or may be making decisions with the result of cutting, you know, their contribution to the UN or simply not paying. And then, of course, we are currently facing with an already acute liquidity crisis, but we are also looking at the prospect of the top financial contributor essentially not paying at all the share of financial contributions to UN and to UN peacekeeping, which then led us to ask our missions to do contingency planning for that possible scenario. Now, how do we react to that? Well, there are a number of exercises that are currently underway, and I will list perhaps 3 of them with different sort of level of, let's say, strategic ambition. The first one is what we call Action for Peacekeeping, which is an old initiative and essentially an umbrella slogan for a number of processes, a number of bodies of work that have to do with the safety and security peacekeepers, the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, countering mis and disinformation, improving performance. How do we assess performance? How do we follow up on performance assessments? How do we bring in digital technologies into peacekeeping? How do we improve accountability, including for sexual exploitation and abuse? And how do we improve relation with the host parties or the host government? So that is Action for Peacekeeping, and we're in the process of updating these initiatives, looking essentially at what has worked and what is more challenging. Now, it's important to note that all these bodies of work were initiated by the UN Secretariat, and they were all eventually mandated by member states, but without corresponding resources given by member states. That is, all of these activities are funded with voluntary funding, which themselves will be shrinking. We know this. Now, to just go beyond, a slightly higher level of strategic ambition, we are looking at the future of peacekeeping, and we had a very successful meeting in Berlin at the ministerial level recently. Our Secretary General was there. There were more than 130 delegations and more than 60 at the ministerial level. And essentially, we focused these meetings, ministerial level meeting, have one dimension, which is about, pledges, essentially how to sort of replenish our pool of capacities. But there was a focus on future peace operation. And what we heard, of course, and what we're looking at, in addition to continuing all the bodies of work related to Action for Peacekeeping, is a couple of other important questions. How do we work on mandate to make sure that there is more realism, more congruence between resources and the mandates, and how do we sort of make sure that the mandates are more prioritized. So that is one thing. Now, the other thing is how do we improve cost effectiveness, because inevitably we'll have to do more on that, given that the financial prospects are what they are. And of course, that has a number of dimensions. One of them, by the way, would be working on prioritizing mandates, but it's also about looking at how do we work with better tools, technologies, and so on and so forth. And it's very much also about how do we, and this is very much for member states, because all of these is a partnership and there's a lot that depends on member states. How do we work with better rules that are more flexible, that are more nimble, that allows our heads of mission and ourselves to be more agile in terms of allocating our resources, allocating our posts, terminating some posts, creating new ones, and all that kind of thing. As we know, I mean, it is heavily micromanaged by member states as of now, and it's really counterproductive. Now, in addition to that, there's a question of partnership. How do we improve partnership, and how do we sometimes don't do what peacekeeping is not really meant to do, and what others should be doing and would be doing better than peacekeeping, particularly when it comes to peace enforcement. So that's the second kind of level of thinking, the future of peacekeeping. And then we have an even broader kind of exercise, which has been requested by member states, which is essentially the future of peace operation writ large. That is every single field presence of the UN, encompassing or ranging from envoys to the large peacekeeping mission, and including special political missions and all these different forms of implication. And now, I mean, this is an incipient work, so we're really in the process of collecting views from member states and looking at how we could better sort of coordinate and find new ways. But I think, and I will stop there, we have three things. One is the political dimension. Again, as long as we have that degree of polarization and division, it's very difficult for us to do our work. And it has an impact also on our financial resources, because with more political division, then there is less appetite for supporting the UN and peacekeeping in particular at the level that would be required. Now, second is it's not about imagining new models. The UN has been very creative in terms of responding to crisis. It's about readiness. So how do we make sure that we would be ready, both in terms of adapting the current operation, but also in terms of creating new operation if we were invited to do this, which could be the case. And then third, of course, we have to keep adapting what we have. It's a relentless sort of a work in progress, but we have to constantly sort of work on improving the extent bodies of peace operation, and that is in itself quite a lot. So I will end there. Again, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Undersecretary General. And I did go a bit longer than I anticipated in terms of your incredible outline, but it was a really important way to frame the discussion today. In terms of contributing troops to these various missions that you've identified, Nepal has a tremendous record. Some almost 6,000 troops, I think, are in the field right now, Ambassador. And
more than 2,000, 6,000.
Okay. So your perspective as a troop contributing country is very important to this discussion as well. I wonder if I can give the floor to you for about 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Moderator, and USC Lacroix, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, namaste and good morning from New York. Quite happy actually to join this discussion on a very important topic of UN peacekeeping. I wish to thank the IPU for organizing this the meeting. As we already know that the peacekeeping has remained one of the very important and indispensable multilateral tools for promoting international peace and security. And this innovative tool actually stands as a guardian of hope for millions affected by the conflicts, providing essential assistance and support where it is needed the most. No doubt, these blue helmets embody our collective commitment to peace, and even Lacroix and Secretary Generals, they always emphasize that this is the true multilateralism in actions and on the ground. In our part, Nepal has not only deeply committed to UN peacekeeping, but also contributed to a great extent. And we have proudly served in peacekeeping over 67 years since 1958. And today, Nepal ranks as the top troop and police contributing country with more than 6,100 peacekeepers deployed in 11 missions across the globe. As you know that Nepali peacekeepers have consistently upheld the highest standards in peacekeeping, which we are serving under the UN flag without any national caveats, without any conditions. Since 1958, over 158,000 Nepali men and women have served in 44 missions, with 94 making the ultimate sacrifice. Today, more than the Nepal is also the leading contributor of female peacekeepers, with more than 620 women deployed, demonstrating our national commitment to gender responsive peace operations and women peace and security agenda. And peacekeeping has evolved far beyond its traditional role of monitoring ceasefires, which you and Alakro also highlighted. Modern missions navigate intricate landscapes where safeguarding civilians, strengthening institutions, and addressing deep-seated political tensions are just as crucial as maintaining ceasefires. For example, just a few days ago, Nepali battalion deployed in Onmi, southern Sudan, had to carry out life-saving response to to protect the civilians following the deadly cattle raid, in one Mapper temporary base. That means our peacekeepers are deployed and to support governance, foster dialogue, mediate conflicts, provide humanitarian aid, help communities recover, and work towards lasting stability. While peacekeepers continue to play a vital role in maintaining stability, the evolving geopolitical landscapes, shifting realities, the emergence of non-state actors, and domestic and international dynamics have introduced new challenges. Many peacekeeping missions are facing more intense security threats, operational constraints, political challenges, leading to premature drawdown. Premature withdrawals have left behind unstable environments. Consent, impartiality, and non-use of force, the fundamental principle of UN peace operations, have been increasingly contested these days. Overstretched and burdened with increasingly enormous expectations, peace operations are in need of adaptability and resilience across the peace continuum. Similarly, attacks against peacekeepers, increasing restrictions on their movements, and failure of political processes they support have all exacerbated the difficulty of their operations. Amidst this backdrop, is you might heard that there have been a lot of debates going on about the future of peacekeeping, as well as how to make the UN peacekeeping more effective and agile in responding to current realities and evolving scenarios. Act of the Futures also highlighted the need to adapt to the new realities, and this issues also was heavily discussed during the peace ministerial meetings in Berlin. On this, let me highlight a few points. First and foremost, effective peacekeeping requires strong and unified political commitment, especially from the Security Council, which was also highlighted by the USA. It is crucial to support political solutions and maintain diplomatic pressure to uphold peace agreements. We also need strong and continued support from the host country. Second, mission mandates should be clear, focused, available, and adaptable to the situation on the ground. As the nature of conflict has changed, but mandates have not been able to keep pace. Peacekeeping was originally designed to monitor ceasefires and create space for political dialogue. But today's missions often operate in contexts where there is no peace to keep. We emphasize sustained, focus, and meaningful dialogue between the Security Council, TPCCs, Secretariat, and host country during the formulation and renewal of mandates. Further, the mandates must be supported with adequate human, financial, logistics, and technological resources. Third, we underscore the importance of resource predictability through the timely financial contributions by the member states. Administrative and procedural matters should be analyzed and during the challenges on the ground. Fourth, missions need a clear exit strategy, integrating the peace operations with political, development, and humanitarian efforts to prevent post-withdrawal security vacuums. As agreed in the Pact of the Future, peacekeeping missions should be deployed with clear exit strategies and viable transition plans. A holistic and integrated approach, integrating peace building and prevention strategies along the political and development priorities should be pursued to prevent post-withdrawal capacity and security vacuum. Fifth, we are investing in strengthening the preparedness of our peacekeepers, including specialized training on protections, human rights, gender mainstream, and operating in high-risk environments. Comprehensive training, including local language proficiency among personnel, is a must to make them engage effectively with local authorities and communities. Sixth, for effective peacekeeping, we must ensure strong cooperations among member states, host country, the secretariat, and regional actors. We reiterate that host countries should provide full support to peacekeeping personnel during and in the repatriation process. Seventh, engaging with communities, especially women and youth, is crucial for fostering inclusive, people-centered peace processes, particularly during transition periods. Eight, we must ensure the safety and security of the personnel. We must hold those responsible for attacks against the peacekeepers and personnel accountable. Nepal is gravely concerned about the recent surge in targeted attacks against peacekeepers. Equally important is the issue of accountability and conduct of peacekeepers. The international community should work together to close the accountability gaps, including through enhanced oversight mechanisms, victim-centered responses, and standardized enforcement across all TPCCs. Misconduct by a few must not be allowed to tarnish the integrity and sacrifice of many. For Nepal, this has been the issue of priority. Our troops are deployed only after the rigorous vetting process, and we enforce a zero tolerance policy on all forms of misconduct. National laws, military and police regulations, and deployment protocols have been strengthened to ensure adherence to the international humanitarian and human rights law. Nine, we must harness the power of technology, such as the UAV, satellite imagery, sensors, and renewable energy to enhance mission efficiency. Leveraging technology will enhance situational awareness, support integrated patrols, strengthen coordinations across military, police, and civilian components, ultimately boosting security and safety of peacekeepers through shared awareness and data-informed decisions. Last but not the least, we must address the root cause of the conflicts, including through investing in sustainable development. For this, we must prioritize peace building, promote reconciliations, and foster economic and social growth for lasting peace. In conclusion, peacekeeping is an indispensable tool for global peace and security and save lives. We all need to work together for the transformation of peacekeeping that are underpinned by political strategies, realistic mandates, and exit strategies while adapting to the new realities. Nepal stands ready to contribute its experience and expertise to this endeavor. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. So we heard sort of the macro picture from Monsieur Lacroix, and now we've heard a 10-point plan that's extremely detailed. And I guess on that 10th point, as incoming president of ECOSOC, you've got some work to do to be able to make sure that there's a less desire for peacekeepers. But that was certainly terrific to hear your perspective and to know that, in fact, Nepal has more than 10% of its personnel is female that's out in the field. So I find a better example. We will hopefully get some questions in more detail from the participants, but before we do that, again, joining us from Tokyo, Professor Kirihara Hunt, over to you for 5 to 7 minutes as well.
Okay, Excellencies, distinguished members of Parliament, it's a very great pleasure for me to be here, and thank you very much for Inter-Parliamentary Union for inviting me. I kind of feel a little bit impossible to capture everything that is on the table, but I would like to start with echoing first about the advantage of UN peacekeeping. So in the independent study on the future of peacekeeping, we have gone through the peer-reviewed articles, academic articles, independent articles, on their evaluation of peacekeeping, and we have found quite a lot of comparative advantages. But I would like to say that what USG Lacroix mentioned, that we were tasked to come up with new models, but we learned that most of the things that were in our list, in our suggestions, was learning from the past. So the diversity of UN peacekeeping, the way that the UN peacekeeping can get resources and support from all kinds of countries, now a little bit of a problem, but the possibility of getting support, financial support, that is relatively sustainable, and having a accountability structure is compared to other organizations and other possible interventions. Accountability mechanisms of the UN is actually a big advantage, because in an independent study that is done by myself, only not by the study, independent study on future peacekeeping as well, my finding was that the accountability mechanism in UN peacekeeping is set, the codes are there, all the rules are there, and they even have very high level representatives looking at how to respond to how to protect the rights of victims, at the same time how to respond as a UN, as a system, to sexual exploitation and abuse, and the information that they collect are made public. Follow-ups are done with the state when they are peacekeeping uniformed personnel being involved. What is possibly a problem is the insistence on following up, but there are examples of troops being sent back when there are troop-wise involvement in misconduct. There are precedences being made. So I think there's a big progress, and it is a comparative advantage of the UN. So that's on the comparative advantage. But of course, there are many new threats, new and emerging threats. And I think most of them USG has highlighted. So I would just like to add maybe the regional kind of threat. Some, for example, transnational organized crimes. Some of those problems that are posing threat to international peace and security, not only with the country, but also sometimes go across the border. And it includes different kinds of violence, not only traditional armed conflict, but many different actors. Therefore, we were suggesting in the independent study of future peacekeeping that all these new threats and the new problems, new technology, new weaponization of new technology, climate problems, and public health problems, transnational organized crimes, all these new threats, new and emerging threats, need to be dealt with by UN peacekeeping, not to change what you're going to use, but to make it adaptable, further adaptable and flexible to cater for the unique situation on the ground. So for that, there is a need for having a flexible approach, adaptable approach. And to do that, if you are to make UN peacekeeping adaptable, you need to be able to actually change if there is a situation change, regional change on the ground, which means there would be a need for people who are tasked, and their professional job is to do so on planning, strategically planning how to change them, how to, first of all, make the mission, who they need, what kind of capabilities they need, what kind of skills they need, how big should it be, what kind of mandate they should have. And this planning need to be continuous to adapt to the emerging situation on the ground. So we are not suggesting that people who are already on the ground are going to have additionally some task of planning, but it's a continuous professional team that is designated for planning. And I think that is a very big need to be able to adapt to the situation that is so challenging. Another thing that I may be able to add within the 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes I'm given, is because of the uniqueness of each situation, and it's getting, it is challenging. So it is necessary to have people who have commitment to the local situation, to make the peace process going, and to know that, to have a local knowledge and regional knowledge on a political side, on a security, on a history, in the language, culture, to be able to actually know the situation, to be able to adapt to the situation. So that is a big factor. So then on the host state side, the host state is the one who decides well, host state is need to be continuously supportive of the peace operations when they are on the ground. So the host state engagement and continuous commitment is necessary. I think the Security Council has been already discussed, so I would just add that we've also suggested that when the Security Council is not functioning, it is obligation or responsibility is a better word for other member states and like a General Assembly to try to convince them, try to unite, get united to convince them, to encourage them to be united. We gave models, new models, but they are actually not new. They were learned from the past experiences and the mandates that were already in many parts of the world. But what we suggested was to see these models as not a static mandate, because if it is a static mandate, then there's a tendency to just take it as a template and move to another place and then try it on to another place. But to think about it as a strategic objective. So if there is a strategic objective, it should be focused, it should be unique to the place. And thinking about the objective, then to choose the personnel needed, capability needed, skill needed, how many people. So it is driven by the strategic goal. And then it is, that's why we are calling it models rather than mandates. For the member states to have look at this kind of a menu of models to see, okay, well, actually this is possible, even though we thought initially that peacekeepers are only going to do this, but actually they are this kind of model, and to be able to partner the countries that are providing resources or personnel and the whole state, it will be easier to partner having these strategic models in front of them. So that's what we try to do. And I think my 7 minutes is probably up, so I will just stop here, but I'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will turn to the audience to ask questions. Am I right, Professor, that so you provided some 30 models to the discussion, and I guess does that allow for some of the or the readiness that the UNSG is talking about, and the ability to adapt, as well as the that 10-point plan that the ambassador was talking about in terms of making sure all those components are there?
Right.
Is his 10-point plan capable within the 30 models that are sort of there on the shelf if someone's looking for them?
Right. So I think the first point is that it is a menu for, and then the Security Council can decide to. It's not something that you will take, for example, preventive deployments model and then use it as it is, but it is a sort of a menu that they can look at and then see. Okay, well, we are going to modify this, or we will use this, but not to have this part, or well, we will try to make some model similar to this, but maybe jointly with another kind of model. So it is our intention, and I think it is possible, is to make it as easy as possible for member states to see possibility of adapting and to contribute as well, and also for host state to accept it, and the Security Council to be united with these models to see, okay, well, how do we do this, instead of having instead of talking about it without this menu. I think it would be easier for countries to unite.
Sounds like an incredibly important inventory, so that it's not just what they've seen in the last 5 years about peacekeeping. It can be something that is more successful. I will turn to the audience. I know we have the acting chair, president of the Standing Committee on UN Affairs is joining us from Argentina. I don't know, Senator Krexel, if you have a question or comment that you wanted to make.
No, thank you. I'm just listening. It's a new issue for me, as you know, and I'm just glad to be here participating and hear all your comments. Such an important issue in the region. So, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Terrific. We do have Mrs. Sederfelt, who's joining us from Sweden, who has a question. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Madame Torsay. I have listened with high interest, and I am impressed by the work you are doing with the peacekeeping, and it's mostly welcome and important. I heard this morning that there is about 120 conflicts worldwide, and I think this is terrible. Not amazing, it's just terrible, and need to be the work for peace need to be stronger. But to have a long-lasting, long-standing peace, we know that there need to be both men and women including, both in the preventive work, but also in peacekeeping and the negotiation for peace. And the follow-up that peace is, the peace agreement is followed. And I am very interested to hear how you look upon these distinguished speakers, what you say about the need of women in peacekeeping, and also if you think it's important, what do you recommend to do to increase the number of women? I ask this question because I have heard for a very, very long time there need to be more women in peacekeeping, but nothing happened. It's the same number as always, and there need to be a change. That's my truly, I am convinced of that, and I look forward for your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now have someone joining us, a member of parliament from Rwanda, I believe. Sir, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. I'm Professor Niyomugabo Cyprian. I'm a senator in the Parliament of Rwanda. And I'm very happy when I was invited to follow this presentation. I was very happy as the topic talking about peacekeeping is very interesting for me, as Rwanda is one of the major contributors in peacekeeping, because in Rwanda our police and troops have been engaged in peacekeeping, in UN missions in South Sudan, in Central African Republic, and one peacekeepers, among them there are women, men, and what you have talked about, we learned much, and it is in the line of what we do in these countries when our armed police are in peacekeeping. So thank you so much for this invitation. Thank you so much for what you have given us a message, and we are learning a lot as a Parliament of Rwanda that will help to improve what we do when we participate in peacekeeping. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator. And you're also speaking to the point that Senator Krexel put up, which is, of course, that national parliaments need to promote support for the system among their respective governments to help those who are working on the revitalization. So the ambassador and the UN Secretary General and all of you who are working in that activity. I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Alessandro, you have a question or comment?
Yes. We heard so much about the politics and the reform process and the general ways in which peacekeeping forces operate. But I wonder if somebody could give us a better sense of a more granular sense on a day-to-day level of what do they do, these forces that are stationed on the ground. Sometimes, I'm speaking as a layperson, my specialty is economic and social affairs, so I'm also learning a lot here. But the impression the world people generally get of peacekeeping forces, they're very passive force stationed someplace, and we don't really understand if that they are simply more like a symbolism or if it's actually for them to be involved in specific activities on a day-to-day basis, and what are those activities to maintain the peace. I'm struck by what the ambassador said, there is often no peace to keep. But what if when there is a peace to keep, how is that actually done concretely on a day-to-day basis? Particularly, I'm also interested, speaking of mandates, I understand that each mission has its own mandate defined by the Security Council, etc. But what leeway do they have, the peacekeeping forces, to address a situation that needs somebody's attention? For example, I'm thinking of the tragic attack on humanitarian workers, UN humanitarian workers in Gaza. And nobody is there to protect them. Nobody is there to stop these people who are doing the most incredible work for the international community and for the people who are being victimized, to go and help UN humanitarian workers. How come that there is no peacekeeping force that can, on its own volition even, say, no, in the region, we're going to go and help these people. We're going to protect these people, our people, UN people. So I'm giving you an extreme sense of what I'm thinking, but what is the flexibility within a mission for a force to actually intervene? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alessandro. And of course, Rwanda suffered badly, the troops that were there, watching things break down so badly. I don't know which order you want to, we have about 8 minutes left, 9 if we go over a tiny bit. Should I'm in your hands. Who wants to go first? how about the professor first, and then we'll have about 2.5 minutes each, and we'll see where we get.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I will leave the Peacekeepers day-to-day work to USG. I think that would be your specialty. So maybe I will try to address a little bit about the gender women in peacekeeping. So our study actually did find that having peacekeeping on the ground do help in gender equality, and having encouraging the places where they have UN peacekeeping have better participation of women. So it encourages women's participation. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. When there is a peace negotiation, there is where there are women involved in the peace process, peace negotiation, there is more chance of the peace being sustainable. So in peacekeeping also, there is a big kind of a push for women to be participating as peacekeepers, including actually not only military or police, but also civilians. So a few things, for example, one is about the working environment or like a working culture. So having a working environment that is free from harassment or sexual violence, that is one that UN has worked on, and it's that's one. Another thing that is possibly a problem is like a gender responsive things. For example, what we were hearing about uniformed personnel was that oftentimes the gears that they have is meant for men and not for women, and that might sound like a small problem, but it is an everyday problem. So they were trying to change that. Or another thing that they were in our hearings, we heard a lot was about women peacekeepers tend to have nobody to talk about their issues. So they're trying to make sort of a coalition, make sort of a network of people who are working on the ground amongst women peacekeepers, and the network of people who have worked there before and working right now. So I think some of those things are being now in a process. If I think I am running out of time, but one more thing is about the strategic communication. I think there was 3 recommendations out of 9 that in our study we mentioned is all about information, how to collect information, how to have correct information, integrity of information, and then how to manage the data, and then how to communicate with people. And in that, I think there is a bit of an possible improvement, but I will just stop there.
Thank you so much. I know this is tough. You guys have so much knowledge to pack it all in. Ambassador, you've got about 2 minutes to make comments on the questions and comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was very nice and very constructive comments on women, peace and security. As I told you that Nepal is very proud to be one of the largest the troop contributors, women troop contributors, and we also during the Berlin Peace Minister we also committed, that means made a pledge to launch a FPU, women-led FPU unit, and that means this is our another commitment. And similarly, we deeply believe and in that the women should be involved during the peace negotiations and then implementation of the peace, the agreement, and during the peacekeeping, even the peace building. And so all the quantum of the peacekeeping and peace buildings, Nepal is deeply committed and will really support for the WPS agenda. And on this, what really the peacekeepers doing? Because I was referring that because there's in some places and situation is so fluid that sometimes the mandate is not enough. Sometimes there are a lot of changes. That was the reasons why we are just trying to have the particular mandate which can be even adjusted to. And so what peacekeepers are doing, and they are doing many things actually these days. and they are doing the operational activities, community activities. As I mentioned in South Sudan, sometimes if there is a fight, immediately, whether they have the mandate or not, they have to go immediately to stop those violence, to protect the civilians. Civilian protection is the another area where our peacekeepers are deeply involved in. Similarly, our peacekeepers are also involved to create the enabling environment for political solutions, including the elections in many places. And those are the many activities I know we are deeply involved in. And thank you so much again for this opportunity. And I really, enjoy that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Undersecretary General, over to you for some concluding remarks and answers.
Thank you. First of all, regarding women in peacekeeping, I mean, it has two dimensions, peacekeeping. One is the number of women in peacekeeping, and the number are increasing. For example, we have 6 missions out of 11 missions which are headed by civilian. And 50% of these, so that is 3 missions, including 2 out of the 3 biggest missions that we have in Africa, are headed by women. In Central African Republic, in the DR Congo, and we have also our mission in Kosovo headed by women. Now, the other missions are headed by military generals, and it's much more difficult to find a senior female general, although we recently appointed the female general as a head of the mission on the Golan Heights, UNLOF. Now, the numbers are increasing pretty much on all categories. That is, we have individual military officers, and we have about 20% and more than 20% female military officers, and that is something, individual military officers, 25% actually, and that has gone up from 18 in 2021. So you see, the evolution has been significant. We have more than 30% individual police officers, and more than about 18% female police officers in the form police unit, up from 15% in 2021. Now, the challenges that we have are essentially in 2 categories. One is the form military units, simply because there aren't many female soldiers. And second, as I indicated earlier, in the senior female general category. But for instance, in the 50% of a head of police component are female police commissioner, that is, female police general. So we're making an effort, and clearly we believe that we have more effective peacekeeping when we have more female in peacekeeping. That has been explained very well by Professor Kehara Hunt and also Ambassador Tapa. Now, the second leg is empowering women in peacekeeping setting. In other words, making sure that women will be part of political efforts, will be involved in the outreach to communities, will be actors of peace. And this is something that our peacekeepers are doing quite actively. And when I visit those missions, I always meet with a few group, women's group in different kind of incarnations. Now, what do peacekeepers do? I will give you 2 examples, essentially. Now, if you're a peacekeeper in Cyprus, let's say a military peacekeepers, you have 2 parties who do not speak to each other. The leaders speak to one another on the peace dialogue, but otherwise, they don't recognize each other. They don't speak to each other, and yet lots of small incidents occur. For example, if you have like a hunter who points his rifle in the wrong direction at let's say Turkish Cypriot soldiers, and then the latter sort of replies or points the gun towards the sort of Cypriot hunter, and that could easily escalate. And we have these kind of incidents occur every single day. Now, what do the peacekeepers do? Essentially, they liaise between the 2 parties and avoid escalation of violence. and potential or unraveling of the ceasefire. And I could give you countless examples of that. Second, protection of civilians. In the province of Ituri, in northern the northern part of eastern DR Congo, we have camps of IDPs, internally displaced persons. Some of them, I visited many of them. Some of them have 80,000 person, protected. And these people are essentially subject, or they're victim of intercommunal violence. If they're not protected, it will be very bad news for them. And essentially, they might face life-threatening sort of situations. And the peacekeepers are there alone to protect them. There's no other military presence to protect them. And while they're protecting them, they also allow humanitarian assistance to be distributed to these people, which wouldn't happen if there was not the kind of a security situation or security conditions provided peacekeepers. And then, in addition to that, when threats of attacks from an armed group sort of materialized, and the peacekeeper essentially intervened to deter those armed groups. Now, would we want to do more? And I will stop there. Of course we would, but we are limited by the resources that we have, the number of people that we have. And sometimes, of course, we're limited by other factors, such as the level of support that we're getting from the host authorities and interference from neighboring states, and so on and so forth. I will not elaborate because we don't have time, but just to give you two very concrete examples of what peacekeepers do on a day-to-day basis. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much. I think we could have had more hours of discussion this morning, because you have such a wealth of knowledge, and clearly the work that you're doing is so important. This conversation, as I mentioned, will be put up on our YouTube link for the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and I'm sure you may have further questions coming up. We hope that it's just the beginning of a dialogue amongst the IPU and those who are talking about peacekeeping, and that we can bring that parliamentary support, as Senator Crexwell said, to the important work that you're doing, because the public does seem to care. And you've got troops from Nepal and other places working very hard to bring peace so that people can be successful. So thank you, each of you, for joining from Tokyo and from New York, and from also from New York, and then all of you who have joined this morning. We really appreciate your support for our work and for helping explain some of the things that are important. Somalia is here as well. So thank you all very much, and wishing you all a very good day. And again, thank you, USG Ambassador and Professor, for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
good
you.
luck.
All the best.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.